My wife went with her ex on New Year's, so I emptied the apartment and now she cries on the street to come back. What's up, Reddit people? I'm writing this because sometimes you need to leave a detailed record of things to convince yourself that they really happened. There are levels of human cynicism and cruelty that surpass any movie, and when you have to live them in your own living room, the only way not to lose your mind is to isolate the problem and disconnect the power before the whole house catches fire. I don't come to seek pity or ask for pats on the back. I come to tell you how blind arrogance makes people, and how absolute patience is the most precise weapon of mass destruction that exists. My name is Nicholas. I am 29 years old and I make a living as an industrial electrician. My job isn't one of those that makes you look good in an expensive suit. I spend my days stuck in high-voltage panels, tracking down short circuits in factories and dealing with wires that, if touched wrong, can kill you in a fraction of a second. That job taught me a fundamental rule for life: never assume anything and never act on impulse. If a machine fails, you don't kick it or yell at it, you take out the multimeter, measure the continuity, find the fault, and cut it out at the root. That same analytical, cold, and methodical mentality was what allowed me to dismantle my own marriage without raising my voice even once. I was married to Brenda for 3 years. She is 28 years old and worked as an event planner in a rather pretentious banquet hall. Brenda was a woman obsessed with appearances. Her entire life was a curation designed so that her friends would think she had a perfect existence, surrounded by luxury and important people. When I met her, she already had a daughter from a previous relationship, a girl named Sophia, who was 4 years old at the time and is now 7. I had no problem taking on the whole package. I took care of the expenses. I paid the rent for our spacious apartment in a residential area, covered the girls' school supplies, the pediatrician, the food, and the utilities. I was the one who read stories to Sophia so she would fall asleep, the one who taught her how to ride a bicycle, and the one who took care of her when she got sick. Meanwhile, Brenda spent almost her entire salary on seasonal clothes, beauty treatments, and outings to maintain her image. The girl's biological father is a guy named Ignacio. Ignacio is 35 years old and owns a local gym. He is the classic gym narcissist, loud, a show-off, who walks as if he had pins in his armpits and believes the world revolves around his biceps and his wallet. During the 3 years I was with Brenda, Ignacio was a ghost. He would appear once every 4 months, buy Sophia a giant doll to take a picture and upload it to his social networks, and then disappear again. He hated real responsibilities. I was the father from Monday to Sunday. He was the party entertainer who came to visit. The catastrophic failure in my family system manifested itself in mid-December of last year. It was a couple of weeks before the holidays. I was in the kitchen, peeling an apple with my pocket knife after an exhausting day in a factory. Brenda walked in, left her coat on the chair, and stood in front of me. She had that hard and condescending expression she used when she had made a decision and didn't care in the slightest about my opinion. "Nicholas, I've already decided what we're going to do for New Year's Eve," she told me, crossing her arms. Ignacio rented a huge house with a pool in a country club. "I'm going to take Sophia and I'm going to spend the 31st and the 1st with him." I stopped peeling the apple. The knife stayed still. I looked her in the eyes, processing the information. "Are you going to spend New Year's with your ex, the 3 of you together, as if you were a family?" I asked, with a completely flat and neutral voice. Brenda snorted, looking me up and down with obvious disdain. "Don't start with your textbook insecurities, please. It's for Sophia's psychological well-being. She is growing up and needs to interact with a real male figure, someone who teaches her about success and ambition. You are very good and I thank you for everything you do around the house, but you are a simple electrician. Ignacio is an entrepreneur, a businessman. Sophia needs that strong model of masculinity on important dates so as not to breed abandonment traumas. You can order a pizza and stay in watching movies, you're not going to die from spending one night alone." That statement was like touching a 300-volt bare wire with wet hands. She was telling me to my face that I wasn't a real man, that my honest job made me inferior, and she was using the girl I raised with all my love as a shield to humiliate me. Anyone else would have thrown the table, yelled at her, and demanded respect. But my brain doesn't work that way. My brain isolated the short circuit instantly. Nobody, absolutely nobody, breaks the peace of a home and risks their economic stability just for a fake pedagogical whim. Brenda wasn't thinking about the girl's mental health. Brenda was unleashing an offense so brutal and calculated that she expected me to shrink in shame and stay quiet in my corner, without asking questions about the true nature of that trip. She wanted me to feel so small that I wouldn't even dare to question her. I took a deep breath. My pulse didn't race. "Okay," I answered, putting the knife in my pocket. "If you as a mother consider that it's best for the girl's development, it's fine with me. Go." Brenda stood blinking, clearly thrown off. She was prepared for a screaming argument, ready to call me jealous and toxic. Finding no resistance, her face relaxed into a smile of absolute triumph. I knew that, deep down, you were going to be mature about it, she said, turning around to go to the bedroom. I'll leave you some cooked food in the fridge. That night, while she slept next to me, doubt consumed me inside. I knew Ignacio. That guy was bothered if Sofia made noise while he looked at his phone. There was no possibility that he wanted to play happy family for 2 days straight. There was something else. I wasn't going to demand anything from her. I was going to look for the power leak. Over the next 3 days, I dedicated myself to observing. I noticed that Brenda took her cell phone even to go to the bathroom. I noticed that she put it face down on the table and that she smiled furtively when she read the screen. But narcissistic people always get too overconfident because they think everyone else is an idiot. On Thursday night, Brenda went to take a shower and left her tablet on the bed. I knew she had her messaging account synced there. I also knew her password was her daughter's birthday and month. I took the tablet. My hands didn't shake. I entered the numbers and the screen lit up. I went straight to the messaging app. I didn't look for Ignacio's name. People who lie always use aliases. I looked in the archive chats folder. There it was, a contact saved as VIP Lounge Supplier. I entered. What I read on that screen caused me such an immense shock that I had to sit on the edge of the bed so as not to fall to the floor. There was no trip to strengthen father-daughter bonds. Brenda and Ignacio had been sleeping together behind my back for 7 months. I read the recent messages, the ones they sent each other right after our talk in the kitchen. Brenda, I already gave the mediocre Nicholas the story. I told him it was for the girl's father figure and the moron kept quiet. He swallowed everything without asking a single question. He is so pathetic it's sad. Ignacio, you're a genius, babe. You deserve something much better than that worker. I already have the reservation for the house with a jacuzzi. My mom is going to pick up the brat on the 31st in the afternoon and we'll take her to her house, so we have the whole house to have fun alone without her bothering us. Brenda, perfect, my love. How disgusting to have to keep sleeping in this house, but at least he pays all the rent and my cards while I save for our trips. My chest rose and fell slowly. The woman I supported considered me a brainless ATM. They planned to use an innocent girl as an excuse, to then dump her at her grandmother's house and be able to go fornicate in a luxury house, all this financed indirectly by my work, because since she didn't pay for anything in the house, she could spend her money on her affairs. But that wasn't the worst part. I kept reading backwards and found another detail. Brenda asked Ignacio, "Are you sure Valeria isn't going to ruin the plan for us?" Ignacio replied, "Don't worry, Valeria is going to Miami with her family to spend New Year's. She suspects absolutely nothing. As soon as I marry her next year and secure the father-in-law's capital, we'll see how I keep seeing you." Valeria. I knew exactly who Valeria was. She was Ignacio's fiancée, the daughter of the owner of a very important chain of car dealerships. Ignacio wasn't a successful businessman, his gym was losing money. He was about to secure his life by marrying a millionaire woman, and my wife was simply his cheap mistress of the moment. The whole picture was disgusting. They were destroying my life and another woman's, and using a 7-year-old girl as collateral damage. I didn't yell. I didn't break the tablet. I did exactly what a technician does when he finds a systemic failure. I documented the problem. I hacked her email account by sending myself the entire exported chat history. I took screenshots of the house reservation receipts, the intimate photos they sent each other, and the audios where they laughed at me. I deleted any trace of my intervention on the tablet and left it exactly in the same geometric position in which I found it. I had 2 weeks left until New Year's. 2 weeks in which I became the best actor in the world. I feigned absolute normality. I asked her what clothes she was going to pack for the girl, I cooked dinners for her, I listened to her complaints about work, and I endured her haughty attitude with a dead smile. She thought she was manipulating a submissive man. I was measuring the dimensions of her financial grave. During those 14 days, I moved with surgical precision. I went to the bank and withdrew 80% of the money from our joint account, which corresponded solely to my deposits. I left only the pittance she had contributed. Since the lease for that huge and expensive apartment was in my name only, the real estate agency didn't accept Brenda because of her debts. I contacted the landlord. I explained that due to force majeure I had to execute the early termination clause. I paid the penalty out of my own pocket. The apartment had to be handed over on the afternoon of January 1st, completely empty. The morning of December 31st arrived. Brenda was euphoric. She was pacing back and forth packing expensive lingerie that, of course, I had paid for months ago. "See you on January 2nd, Nicholas," she told me at the door, holding the girl's hand. "Try not to get too depressed today. Order something nice for dinner." I crouched down, kissed the girl on the forehead, who looked at me with sadness, and then I looked at Brenda. "Don't worry. I'm going to have a highly productive New Year's Eve," I answered, with a sincere smile. As soon as I heard the elevator close, the clock started ticking. I called my 2 brothers and a couple of friends from the union. I had told them the truth the night before. 30 minutes later, they arrived with a giant moving van. We worked like industrial machines. We dismantled everything. I took out my furniture, my appliances, the television, my clothes, absolutely everything I had bought with my sweat. We loaded everything into the van and moved it to a storage unit I rented temporarily. I was going to stay a few days in the guest room at one of my brother's houses. Then, we returned to the apartment to deal with her. I went to the hardware store and bought 40 thick, black garbage bags. We started packing Brenda's life. We didn't break anything, but we had no mercy. We stuffed her designer dresses, her extremely expensive shoes, her costume jewelry, and all her useless ornaments into the garbage bags. I left the girls' things decently packed in cardboard boxes. At 9 o'clock at night, the apartment was gloomy, huge, and echoed with every step. In the center of the living room, there was only a mountain of 40 black garbage bags and a couple of boxes. I sat on the wooden floor, opened my laptop, and connected to my phone's data network. It was time to dynamite the other side of the bridge. I had tracked down the social media of Valeria, Ignacio's millionaire fiancée. I found her professional profile and her work email. I wrote a direct, cold, and objective message. "Dear Valeria, nobody deserves to start a new year living a lie. Your fiancé, Ignacio, is not at a business meeting or resting alone. He is right now in a rented house with his mistress of 7 months, who is my wife. I am attaching the complete message history, the paid reservations, and the photographs that confirm the fraud against your trust. Happy New Year, and may the truth serve to protect your assets." I attached the compressed folder with all the evidence and pressed send. I closed the computer. I went to the kitchen and left the apartment keys on the counter, next to a note taped down. "The lease agreement has been cancelled. You have until noon tomorrow to remove your garbage bags from this place before the concierge changes the locks. I hope your daughter's true male figure helps you carry the weight of your reality. Do not try to contact me." I walked out the door, turned the lock twice, and went down to my car. I drove through the empty streets of the city as the first fireworks began to burst in the dark sky. I felt absolute peace, as if a lead armor had been taken off me. If you have any ideas on what I should do with the engagement ring I found in her drawer that she never wore, leave them in the comments. I'll be reading them. I prepared everything for the impact, and the impact was monumental. First update. Exactly 48 hours have passed since the detonation of the New Year's bomb. I thank all the Reddit users who took the time to read my report and leave their suggestions. The level of destruction unleashed in these 2 days far exceeded my own calculations, and the speed at which karma operated was so precise that it seems written by a screenwriter. To start, let's talk about Valeria, Ignacio's millionaire fiancée. It turns out that businesswomen who run family empires don't cry looking out the window when they discover an infidelity, they destroy wallets. Valeria was in Miami with her family when she received my email at 1 in the morning. As I later found out through an acquaintance who works in her family circle, she didn't shed a single tear. She opened the folder, reviewed the photos of Ignacio with my wife, read the chats where he mocked her and calculated how to steal her father's money, and proceeded to forward all that material directly to her company's legal team. At 8 in the morning on January 1st, while Ignacio and my wife slept off their hangovers in their luxury cabin, Ignacio's phone started ringing non-stop. It was Valeria's father's lawyer. They informed him that the $80,000 wedding was cancelled, that Valeria had thrown all his belongings out on the street in front of his apartment, and most seriously, that the $100,000 zero-interest loan the father-in-law had given Ignacio to open his famous gym had been revoked due to breach of morality clauses. They demanded full payment in less than 30 days or they would proceed with the seizure of the machines, the weights, and the commercial premises. Ignacio woke up my wife screaming. I found out the details of this fight because Brenda called me from the concierge's phone at my old building at 1 in the afternoon. I was sitting in the dining room at my brother's house, drinking a coffee. I answered the call. I could hear the background traffic noise and the heavy breathing of a person on the verge of total collapse. "Nicholas, for the love of God," she screamed, with a hysterical and hoarse voice. "Tell me you didn't do this. Tell me you didn't send those emails to Valeria." I kept the phone pressed to my ear, taking a sip of coffee. "Happy New Year, Brenda. How was your daughter's male figure in the cabin?" She let out a choked sob. "Ignacio threw me out on the street. He saw Valeria's email, went crazy, started throwing my things out the cabin window, and dumped me in the middle of the mountain. I had to pay $100 for a rural taxi to bring me back to the city with the girl. I get to the apartment and the concierge won't let me up. He tells me the lease is cancelled and my things are in 50 garbage bags in the lobby. The concierge does his job well, I answered, with an icy tone. I left you a very clear note. You have to take your garbage today. I have nowhere to go. I have no money to pay for a mover on a holiday. Nicholas, please, open the door. Forgive me, let's talk like civilized people. She begged, crying in such a pathetic way that it repulsed me. You lost the right to a civilized conversation when you called me mediocre in my own kitchen and used an innocent girl to cover up your orgies financed with my money, I told her, without raising my voice a single decibel. Okay, I'll give you a piece of advice. Call your friends from the boutique and ask them for asylum. My responsibility over you expired at midnight. She tried to keep screaming, but the concierge took the phone from her because she was disturbing the peace in the reception. She called out to him screaming, but I hung up the call. I blocked her immediately on my personal cell phone. Yesterday afternoon, the owner of the apartment confirmed that Brenda had to beg a cousin of hers who has an old pickup truck to help her take the 50 black bags out of the lobby. She went to live temporarily in the maid's room at her aunt's house, an older woman who hates noise and hates her. From the house with a pool and the dream of luxury, she went to sleeping on an air mattress surrounded by garbage bags. Regarding the engagement ring I mentioned in my original post, I followed the advice of one of the users in the comments. I went to a gold buying and selling jewelry store downtown. They paid me $1,200 for the piece. With that cash, I went straight to an industrial supply store. I bought myself a top-quality leather tool belt, a state-of-the-art cordless drill, and a professional electrician's knife with an insulated handle. Using the money from her supposed promise of love to invest in my own work and my future is the best energetic cleansing I could have done. The divorce process is already underway. My lawyer drafted the lawsuit yesterday. Since we don't have children together, there are no joint assets of value, and she works, the process will be fast and straightforward. She has no legal basis to ask me for a single cent in alimony. We'll see how the event planner adapts to real life without my wallet. Second update. Exactly 1 month has passed since the eviction and the most purifying New Year's of my existence. The inertia of the disaster continues to drag the guilty ones down, and the consequences have become increasingly permanent. Let's start with the great alpha male, Ignacio. The warning from Valeria's father's lawyers was not a simple threat, it was a commercial execution. Since Ignacio did not have the $100,000 liquid to repay the loan, Valeria's family's legal team executed the guarantee. In mid-January, they arrived at the gym with a court order, 2 moving trucks, and 3 court officers. They completely emptied the premises. They took the treadmills, the weight machines, the mirrors, and even the televisions from the waiting room. The gym closed its doors permanently. Ignacio declared fraudulent bankruptcy, but the lawyers proved that he had been diverting funds to pay for hotels and dinners with my ex-wife. Currently, the supposed successful businessman is facing a civil lawsuit for fraud, has his bank account seized, lost his sports car because he couldn't pay the auto loan installment, and had to move back to his mother's house, sleeping in his old teenage bedroom. Brenda, for her part, found out about Ignacio's ruin and tried to detach herself from him completely. She told her friends that a mysterious hacker hacked her email account and her tablet to ruin her life, refusing to accept that it was her own stupidity and shamelessness that left the door open for me to discover everything. Her housing situation became unsustainable. The aunt she was staying with got tired of her complaints, her lack of collaboration in cleaning the house, and the girls' tantrums. The aunt threw her out after 2 weeks. Because Brenda was on the defaulters register due to her credit card debts that I stopped paying, no decent real estate agency wanted to rent her an apartment. She had to resort to a seedy boarding house in a peripheral neighborhood of the city. She rented a small room, where a double bed and a fabric closet barely fit. She and the girl live there now. Last week we had the only mandatory mediation instance before the judge issues the divorce decree. I arrived at the civil court at 9 in the morning. I put on a clean shirt, my polished work boots, and sat in the waiting room with my lawyer. 15 minutes later, Brenda appeared. The visual shock was inevitable. The woman who a month ago invested 2 hours a day in makeup and hair to look like a magazine model, walked in dragging her feet. She wore worn-out jeans, a generic shapeless jacket, and her hair tied up in a messy bun. She had no makeup. Her dark circles were deep and her skin looked grayish. The stress of losing her status, her home, and her safety net had consumed her quickly. She sat across from me at the large wooden table in the mediator's office. She didn't look me in the eye. She kept her gaze fixed on her hands, which trembled slightly on her knees. The mediator read the terms of the divorce agreement. Absolute separation of property, no compensatory alimony for either party, and total cessation of shared financial obligations. Brenda didn't have money to hire a private lawyer, so she was assisted by a public defender who clearly hadn't read the file until 5 minutes before entering. "Mrs. Brenda," said the mediator, extending a plastic pen to her, "are you in agreement with the terms stipulated in this document? If so, please sign on the dotted line." Brenda took the pen. Her hand hung suspended over the paper for several seconds. The silence in the room was thick, heavy. "Nicholas," she whispered, with a raspy voice, broken by humiliation, "does it really have to end like this? Sophia asks for you every night. She cries because she says you don't read her stories anymore." Using the girl again. That was her last card, her desperate attempt to appeal to my morality and make me feel guilty. I looked her directly in the eyes. My expression didn't change. My chest didn't heave. "Sophia has a biological father, Brenda. A successful businessman and a true male figure who will surely teach her everything about life and business," I answered, using her own exact words like sharp blades. "My role as a boring electrician ended on December 31st. Sign the paper." Brenda closed her eyes and a thick tear fell on the legal contract, smudging the ink of her own name. She gritted her teeth, signed the document quickly, and got up from the chair. She practically ran out of the office, without saying goodbye to her own public defender. The mediator passed me the document. I signed with a steady hand. I went out into the street, breathed the cold morning air, and went straight to my work. I found out through a coworker of Brenda's that she was demoted at the banquet hall. Because her physical appearance had deteriorated so much and her attitude was terrible, they removed her from the public relations and customer service position. Now she works in the back, organizing the linen inventory, cleaning plastic chairs after parties, and dealing with suppliers at the back door of the venue. Her salary was cut in half due to the loss of commissions. The universe balances the equations perfectly. Third update. 6 months have passed since the beginning of this storm. I write this last text as a definitive closure to this file, because the past no longer belongs to me and the future requires all my energy. The divorce decree arrived by certified mail 2 months ago. I am a completely free man in the eyes of the law, with no debts, no emotional anchors to toxic people, and without the dead weight of maintaining a narcissist's ego. My life has taken a spectacular turn, driven by the absolute tranquility that reigns in my days. At the industrial maintenance company, my boss noticed my ability to concentrate and my quick resolution of complex problems in high-voltage panels. I was promoted to crew chief. Now I supervise 6 electricians, design plans for industrial installations, and my salary has almost doubled. With the money I saved by stopping paying luxurious rent and other people's credit cards, I put a down payment on a modest house in a quiet neighborhood. It has a small garden where I plan to plant a couple of trees and build a tool shop in the back. It's mine. Every brick and every wire belongs to me. A few weeks ago I met someone. Her name is Laura. She is an intensive care nurse. She has horrible shifts and a very high stress level, but when we sit down for coffee, we talk about real things. She doesn't care if my clothes aren't name brand. She doesn't spend her life uploading photos to make others envy her. She knows how fragile human life is and values peace above anything else. We are taking it very slow, building trust without pressure, but it is the first time in years that I feel I am investing my time in someone who truly deserves it. On the other hand, the fate of my former abusers was sealed permanently. The city is big, but social circles sometimes cross in strange ways. I ran into Ignacio 15 days ago at a wholesale hardware store. He was loading bags of cement into the bed of a beat-up pickup truck. He was wearing dirty construction clothes and was sweaty, aged. The man who thought he was the king of the world because his fiancée paid for his life was now working as a bricklayer's laborer for a daily wage. He caught a glimpse of me out of the corner of his eye, quickly lowered his head, and pretended to be focused on tying a rope to avoid making eye contact with me. The shame of knowing that I knew exactly what kind of loser he was paralyzed him. I know very little about Brenda, only what's necessary to confirm that the supply cut was total. She continues to live in the same boarding house. She had to sell all her party dresses and expensive shoes to second-hand stores for a fraction of their original value to be able to pay the room rent and the girls' food. She was fired definitively from the banquet hall because she started arriving late constantly. Now she works as a cashier at a discount supermarket on the afternoon shift. Sometimes I feel a little sad thinking about Sophia, the girl. She was not to blame for having such defective and immature biological parents. But I also know that one cannot set oneself on fire to keep others warm. I saved my life, my dignity, and my future. The responsibility for that girl falls entirely on the 2 irresponsible people who decided to play at adventures at the expense of a home's tranquility. To all the men reading this forum in the darkness of the early morning, suspecting that their partners are lying to them, using them, or triangulating them with other people, listen carefully. The worst trap of infidelity and psychological abuse is making you believe that it's your fault for not being enough. They make you feel that if you made more money, if you were more attractive, or if you were more tolerant, they wouldn't hurt you. It is a lie designed to keep you docile. Don't cry. Don't yell. Don't beg for respect from someone who has already shown they have none. Go to the main breaker box of your life. Review the blueprints. Find where the short circuit is that is draining your energy and stealing your peace. Take your tool, put on your insulating gloves, and cut the wire at its root. The initial darkness is scary, but when you turn the system back on and the lights turn on only for you, you realize that productive loneliness is 1,000,000 times better than parasitic company. Keep a cool head, protect your resources, and never telegraph the punch before throwing it. This is my last report. The system is stabilized. Over and out, Reddit. See you on the other side.